In the dead of night, when most people were sleeping peacefully in their beds, she was already 3 miles into her run along the rocky California coastline. The salty ocean breeze cut through her lungs as she pushed her body beyond what anyone thought possible. Behind her, a group of hardened military instructors watched in stunned silence as she outpaced candidates who had trained their entire lives for this moment. This wasn't supposed to happen. Women weren't even allowed to attempt what she was doing. The very request had been laughed out of Pentagon offices just months before. Military officials had dismissed her application without a second thought, filing it away with the certainty that some battles weren't meant to be fought. But Sarah Chun wasn't just any woman. She was about to shatter every assumption, break every record, and prove that the most dangerous thing you can do is underestimate someone who has absolutely nothing to lose and everything to prove. What happened next would force the U.S. Navy to rewrite their policies, challenge a century of military tradition, and create a legend that would inspire generations. This is the true story of how one woman's refusal to accept no changed everything. Sarah Chun had always been different. Growing up in a small town in Ohio, she was the girl who climbed the highest trees, swam in the coldest lakes, and never backed down from a challenge. Her parents, both immigrants from Taiwan, had worked tirelessly to provide their daughter with opportunities they never had. Her father ran a small electronics repair shop, while her mother worked double shifts at the local hospital. They taught Sarah that in America, anything was possible if you worked hard enough and never gave up. At 15, Sarah discovered her calling while watching a documentary about Navy SEALs. The footage showed these elite warriors pushing through impossible conditions, their bodies and minds tested beyond normal human limits. Something deep inside her stirred as she watched them emerge from freezing ocean waters, complete grueling obstacle courses, and demonstrate unwavering mental toughness. She turned to her parents that night and announced her intention to become a Navy SEAL. Her father nearly choked on his tea. Her mother simply stared in disbelief. They explained, as gently as possible, that women couldn't become SEALs. It had never been done. The military had strict policies in place. Sarah listened politely, thanked them for their concern, and quietly began planning her path forward anyway. The next morning, she started running. Not the casual jogging that most teenagers might attempt, but serious, disciplined distance running. She mapped out routes through her neighborhood, timing herself obsessively and pushing to beat her previous records every single day. When winter came, and the Ohio snow made outdoor running treacherous, she convinced the local gym owner to let her use their facilities in exchange for cleaning equipment after hours. Sarah's high school years became a carefully orchestrated preparation for a goal that everyone told her was impossible. She joined every sport that would build the physical and mental toughness she knew she would need. Cross-country running gave her endurance. Wrestling taught her to fight through exhaustion and pain. Swimming developed her water confidence and lung capacity. Her coaches were initially puzzled by her intensity and focus, but they quickly learned not to question her dedication. During her junior year, Sarah's wrestling coach, Mike Rodriguez, pulled her aside after practice. He had been watching her train with an intensity that bordered on obsession. While other students complained about difficult workouts, Sarah asked for additional training. When practice ended, she stayed to work on weaknesses she had identified in her performance. "What's driving you, Chen?" he asked one evening as she finished an extra hour of conditioning work. Sarah looked at him for a long moment before answering. "I'm going to become a Navy SEAL," she said simply. Coach Rodriguez had seen a lot of determined athletes in his 20-year career, but something in Sarah's voice convinced him she was serious. Instead of laughing or explaining why it wasn't possible, he made a decision that would change both of their lives. "If you're serious about this, you're going to need more than what any high school can give you," he told her. "My brother runs a private training facility. He works with military candidates and professional athletes. It's going to be harder than anything you've experienced." Sarah's eyes lit up. This was exactly what she had been looking for. The next week, Coach Rodriguez drove her to a converted warehouse on the outskirts of town. The facility looked unremarkable from the outside, but inside was a world-class training environment. Obstacle courses, swimming pools, weight rooms, and equipment she had never seen before filled the space. Jack Rodriguez, the coach's brother, was a former Marine who had served 3 tours in Afghanistan. He took one look at Sarah and shook his head. "Mike, what are you thinking? I train serious candidates here. This isn't summer camp." "Give her 1 week," Mike replied. "If she can't keep up, we'll leave and never bother you again." Jack shrugged and handed Sarah a training schedule. Be here at 5 a.m. tomorrow. Wear comfortable clothes you don't mind destroying. The next morning, Sarah arrived at 4:45 a.m. Jack was already there, setting up equipment for what he called an assessment day. The workout that followed was unlike anything Sarah had ever experienced. 2 hours of nonstop physical challenges that tested every aspect of fitness and mental toughness. She started with a 3-mile run that had to be completed in under 24 minutes. Sarah finished in 22 minutes and 30 seconds, breathing hard but still standing. Next came an obstacle course that required her to climb ropes, crawl under barriers, carry heavy objects, and navigate complex challenges. Jack watched silently as she attacked each obstacle with determination, never complaining or asking for breaks. The swimming portion nearly broke her. Jack had her swim laps while wearing full clothing and boots, then retrieve objects from the bottom of the pool while holding her breath. Her lungs burned and her muscles screamed, but she continued. When other candidates might have quit, Sarah pushed through the pain and completed every requirement. By the end of the day, Jack's skepticism had transformed into grudging respect. Sarah had not only completed every challenge but had done so with a level of mental toughness that impressed even a hardened Marine veteran. More importantly, she had shown the kind of coachable attitude that separated good athletes from great ones. You can come back tomorrow, Jack told her as she prepared to leave. But understand something. What we did today was the easy part. If you really want to pursue this SEAL goal, the training is going to get much harder. Sarah nodded. I understand. I'll be here. Over the following months, Sarah's life became completely focused on preparation. She woke up at 4:30 a.m. every day to train with Jack before school. Her afternoons were spent in regular high school sports practice, and her evenings included additional conditioning work and studying military history and tactics. She read every book she could find about SEAL training, memorizing details about the selection process, and learning about the mental strategies that helped candidates succeed. Her parents watched this transformation with a mixture of pride and concern. They had never seen their daughter so focused on anything, but they worried about the toll such intensive training was taking on her body and social life. Sarah's grades remained excellent, but she had no time for typical teenage activities. While her classmates went to movies and parties, Sarah was studying military manuals and perfecting her physical conditioning. The social isolation didn't bother Sarah. She had found her purpose, and everything else seemed trivial in comparison. Her friends gradually stopped inviting her to social events, understanding that she would always choose training over entertainment. Some thought she was crazy. Others admired her dedication even if they didn't understand her goal. During her senior year, Sarah began researching the official process for joining the Navy and attempting SEAL training. What she discovered was discouraging, but not surprising. No women had ever successfully completed SEAL training. The program remained officially closed to female candidates. Military officials she contacted were polite but clear. This path was not available to her. But Sarah had learned something important during her years of training with Jack. The military was a large organization with many different entry points and career paths. If she couldn't go directly into SEAL training, she would find another way to prove her capabilities and work toward her goal from within the system. She enlisted in the Navy immediately after graduating high school, choosing a rating that would give her the best possible preparation for future opportunities. Her plan was simple: excel at everything the Navy gave her to do, build a record of exceptional performance, and position herself to take advantage of any future policy changes. Boot camp was almost disappointingly easy after years of training with Jack. While other recruits struggled with the physical demands and mental pressure, Sarah found herself holding back to avoid standing out too much. Her drill instructors noticed her exceptional performance, but assumed she was just another motivated recruit with good natural athletic ability. After boot camp, Sarah was assigned to Explosive Ordnance Disposal School, one of the most challenging technical fields in the Navy. The work involved identifying, disarming, and disposing of bombs and explosive devices. It required both exceptional technical skill and the kind of mental toughness that kept you calm while working with materials that could kill you instantly if you made a mistake. Sarah thrived in EOD school. The combination of physical demands, technical complexity, and high-stakes decision-making was exactly the kind of challenge she had been preparing for. Her instructors were impressed by her ability to remain calm under pressure and her meticulous attention to detail. She graduated at the top of her class and was selected for advanced training that would eventually deploy her with elite military units. Her first deployment took her to Afghanistan, where she worked with Army Special Forces units to clear improvised explosive devices from roads and buildings. The work was dangerous and demanding, but it gave Sarah exactly the kind of experience and credibility she knew she would need for her ultimate goal. The Special Forces soldiers she worked with quickly learned to respect her abilities. In a world where competence meant the difference between life and death, Sarah's gender became irrelevant compared to her skill and reliability. She could clear complex explosive devices under fire, remain calm during ambushes, and carry her own weight during long patrols in difficult terrain. More importantly, she was building relationships with military personnel who would remember her capabilities and advocate for her when opportunities arose. These connections would prove crucial in the years to come as military policies slowly began to change regarding women in combat roles. After 18 months in Afghanistan, Sarah returned to the United States with combat experience, advanced technical training, and a reputation for excellence that followed her throughout the military. She had proven herself in real-world conditions and earned the respect of some of the most elite soldiers in the American military. But her ultimate goal remained unchanged. Sarah Chun was still determined to become the first woman to successfully complete Navy SEAL training, even if the path to that goal remained unclear. She had spent years preparing her body and mind for challenges that most people couldn't even imagine. Now it was time to find a way to get the opportunity to prove what she was capable of achieving. The stage was set for a confrontation with military tradition that would test everything Sarah had learned about perseverance, preparation, and the power of refusing to accept limitations that others tried to impose on her dreams. Sarah's second deployment brought new challenges and unexpected opportunities. She was assigned to work with a joint task force that included Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, and other special operations units. For the first time in her military career, she would be working directly alongside the very people she hoped to join. The base in eastern Afghanistan was unlike anything Sarah had experienced before. Unlike regular military installations with their rigid hierarchies and formal protocols, special operations units operated with a different culture. Performance mattered more than rank. Results counted more than regulations. If you could do the job and keep your teammates alive, you earned respect regardless of your background. Sarah's reputation had preceded her. The EOD technician who could remain calm while disarming bombs under enemy fire had become something of a legend among special operations personnel. When she arrived at the forward operating base, she found herself assigned to work with SEAL Team 7, one of the most experienced and decorated units in the Navy. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Webb, the team leader, was initially skeptical about working with anyone outside his unit. SEALs were trained to be self-sufficient and to trust only their fellow team members. The addition of an outsider, especially a woman, represented an unknown variable in operations where the margin for error was essentially zero. "I don't care what your reputation is," Webb told Sarah during their first meeting. "Out here, you prove yourself every single day. Your previous accomplishments mean nothing if you can't perform when my men's lives are on the line." Sarah nodded respectfully. "I understand, sir. I'm here to do whatever job you need done." Her first mission with the team was a night raid on a compound suspected of housing a bomb-making facility. Sarah's job was to clear any explosive devices they discovered and gather intelligence about the bomb-making operation. It was exactly the kind of high-stakes, fast-moving operation that separated competent military personnel from truly elite operators. The helicopter insertion went smoothly, but as soon as the team moved toward the target building, everything started going wrong. Intelligence reports had underestimated the number of enemy fighters in the area. What was supposed to be a quick raid turned into a prolonged firefight with multiple buildings and complex terrain. Sarah found herself separated from the main team when enemy fighters attacked from an unexpected direction. Instead of panicking or calling for immediate extraction, she used her training and experience to assess the situation and continue with her mission. Moving carefully through the compound, she identified and disarmed 3 improvised explosive devices that could have killed her teammates during their assault on the main building. More importantly, she discovered a workshop filled with bomb-making materials and detailed plans for attacks on American forces. Working quickly while gunfire continued around her, Sarah photographed documents, collected material samples, and prepared the area for demolition once the team was ready to withdraw. When the SEALs finally cleared the main building and regrouped, They found Sarah calmly finishing her work in the bomb workshop. She had completed her mission objectives while under fire and, without backup, demonstrating exactly the kind of independent thinking and courage that special operations units valued above everything else. "How many devices did you find?" Webb asked as they prepared to leave the compound. "3 that were armed and ready to detonate," Sarah reported. "I've marked the locations and disarmed them. The workshop is ready for demolition whenever you're ready to move out." Webb looked around the room, noting the systematic way Sarah had processed the intelligence and prepared everything for destruction. In his 15 years of special operations experience, he had worked with many EOD technicians, but few had shown this level of competence under pressure. The mission debriefing back at base was unlike any Sarah had experienced. Instead of the formal after-action reports common in regular military units, the SEALs conducted a detailed analysis of everything that had happened during the operation. They discussed what had gone well, what could have been improved, and how to apply lessons learned to future missions. For the first time, Sarah found herself being treated as an equal participant rather than a support specialist. The SEALs asked for her input on tactical decisions, listened to her suggestions about future operations, and included her in planning discussions for upcoming missions. Over the following months, Sarah participated in dozens of operations with SEAL Team 7. Each mission brought new challenges and opportunities to prove her capabilities. She cleared explosives from tunnel systems, gathered intelligence during deep reconnaissance missions, and provided technical expertise that helped save American lives and complete critical objectives. More importantly, she was learning how special operations units actually functioned. The training, tactics, and mindset that made SEALs effective were becoming second nature to her through daily exposure and practical application. By the time her deployment ended, Sarah had accumulated more actual combat experience with special operations units than many SEAL candidates received during their entire careers. Lieutenant Commander Webb's final evaluation of Sarah's performance was unlike any he had written before. Instead of the standard military language praising competence and reliability, Webb wrote a detailed assessment that highlighted capabilities he had rarely seen in any military personnel. Petty Officer Chun has demonstrated exceptional performance in all phases of special operations, Webb wrote. Her technical expertise, tactical awareness, and ability to perform under extreme pressure make her one of the most valuable team members I have worked with in 15 years of special operations. She has consistently exceeded expectations and shown the kind of mental toughness and professional competence that define elite military personnel. But the most significant part of Webb's evaluation was his recommendation for Sarah's future assignments. Instead of suggesting continued work in traditional EOD roles, Webb recommended that Sarah be considered for advanced special operations training and eventual assignment to special operations units on a permanent basis. When Sarah returned to the United States, she found that Webb's evaluation had created significant interest among Navy personnel officers. Her combination of combat experience, technical expertise, and proven performance with special operations units made her an ideal candidate for several advanced training programs that were just beginning to open to women. The timing was fortunate. Political pressure from Congress and changing attitudes within the military were forcing the Navy to reconsider policies that had traditionally excluded women from certain roles. Sarah's documented performance record made her an obvious candidate for experimental programs that would test whether women could successfully complete training and perform duties in previously restricted specialties. Sarah received orders to report to the Naval Special Warfare Center for evaluation as a potential candidate for advanced special operations training. It wasn't exactly SEAL training, but it was the closest opportunity that had ever been available to women. More importantly, it represented a chance to prove that gender was irrelevant when it came to the mental and physical toughness required for elite military units. The evaluation period was designed to be as challenging as possible. Navy officials wanted to determine whether women could realistically complete the kind of training that had historically had failure rates above 80%, even for highly motivated male candidates. Sarah would be tested alongside men who had been specifically selected for their exceptional physical and mental capabilities. The first phase of evaluation focused on basic physical fitness and water confidence. Sarah had been preparing for these challenges for years, and her performance was immediately notable. She completed swimming requirements faster than most of her male counterparts, finished obstacle courses in record times, and demonstrated the kind of sustained performance under stress that impressed even skeptical evaluators. But The real test came during the psychological evaluation phase. Special operations personnel faced unique mental stresses that could break even physically capable individuals. Evaluators needed to determine whether candidates could maintain effectiveness while operating under extreme psychological pressure for extended periods. Sarah's sessions with Navy psychologists revealed someone who had developed exceptional mental resilience through years of focused preparation. Her ability to compartmentalize stress, maintain focus under pressure, and recover quickly from setbacks impressed evaluators who had tested thousands of special operations candidates. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, the chief psychologist for the evaluation program, had initially been skeptical about whether any candidates, male or female, could demonstrate the psychological profile needed for the most demanding special operations roles. After extensive testing, her assessment of Sarah was unequivocal. This candidate demonstrates psychological resilience and stress tolerance at the highest levels we have measured, Dr. Walsh wrote in her evaluation report. Her ability to maintain performance effectiveness under extreme pressure, combined with exceptional self-awareness and adaptive thinking, indicates strong potential for success in the most demanding special operations environments. As the evaluation period continued, Sarah found herself being tested in scenarios that pushed beyond anything she had experienced, even during combat deployments. Sleep deprivation, physical exhaustion, complex problem-solving under time pressure, and leadership challenges designed to identify natural decision-makers and team builders. Through each phase of testing, Sarah not only met standards but often exceeded them by significant margins. Her performance caught the attention of senior Navy officials who were watching the evaluation program closely. If women could successfully complete special operations training, it would represent a fundamental shift in military capabilities and traditions. The final evaluation report, compiled by a team of special operations instructors, fitness experts, and psychologists, reached conclusions that surprised even Sarah's supporters. Not only was she qualified to attempt special operations training, but her overall evaluation scores placed her among the top candidates they had ever tested, regardless of gender. Candidate Chun has demonstrated exceptional qualifications in all evaluated areas, the report concluded. Physical fitness scores in the 95th percentile, psychological resilience at the highest measurable levels, and technical competence that exceeds requirements for advanced special operations training. Recommend immediate selection for the most challenging available training programs. Sarah received the news while stationed at her home base, still processing the implications of what she had accomplished. The Navy was officially offering her the opportunity to attempt training that no woman had ever been allowed to try. It was the chance she had been working toward for years, but it also meant stepping into unknown territory with no guarantee of success. The opportunity came with significant risks. If she failed, it would be used as evidence that women couldn't handle the most demanding military training. Her failure would close doors for other women who might follow. But if she succeeded, she would prove that capability was what mattered, not gender. Sarah's decision was immediate and unequivocal. She had spent her entire adult life preparing for this opportunity. Every training session, every deployment, every challenge had been leading to this moment. She would attempt what no woman had ever accomplished, and she would give everything she had to succeed. The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning that would change everything. Sarah Chun read the official Navy correspondence 3 times before the full meaning registered. She was being invited to attempt basic underwater demolition/SEAL training, the legendary course known throughout the military simply as BUD/S. After years of preparation and political maneuvering, the Navy had finally opened the door to the most exclusive club in American special operations. The letter was carefully worded, emphasizing that this was an experimental program designed to evaluate whether women could successfully complete SEAL training. Sarah would be joining Class 234, a group of highly selected male candidates who had already passed preliminary screening. She would receive no special consideration or modified standards. The same requirements that had broken thousands of aspiring SEALs would apply to her without exception. Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she set the letter down. This was the moment she had been working towards since watching that documentary as a 15-year-old girl in Ohio. Everything she had endured, every sacrifice she had made, every person who had told her it was impossible had led to this opportunity. The next morning, Sarah began the most intense preparation period of her life. She had 6 weeks before reporting to Naval Amphibious Base Coronado in California. 6 weeks to ensure her body and mind were ready for challenges that had historically eliminated more than 80% of candidates, including many who were considered among the most physically and mentally tough individuals in the world. Her training schedule became almost inhuman in its intensity. She woke up at 3:30 a.m. for a 2-hour swim in the Pacific Ocean, building the water confidence and endurance that would be crucial during the notorious drown-proofing exercises. After swimming, she completed a 10-mile run through the hills surrounding San Diego, focusing on maintaining pace even when exhausted. Afternoons were dedicated to strength training and obstacle course work. Sarah had identified weakness in her upper body strength relative to male candidates and attacked this deficit with systematic intensity. She spent hours on pull-ups, rope climbs, and carrying exercises designed to build the kind of functional strength needed for SEAL training. Evenings were reserved for mental preparation. Sarah studied every available account of BUD/S training, memorizing details about specific exercises, instructor personalities, and the psychological challenges that broke most candidates. She practiced meditation and visualization techniques designed to help her maintain focus during the most difficult moments. The physical preparation was demanding, but Sarah's real challenge was mental. She would be under constant scrutiny as the first woman to attempt SEAL training. Every mistake would be magnified. Every success would be questioned. She needed to perform flawlessly while dealing with pressure that no previous candidate had ever faced. 3 weeks before reporting to BUD/S, Sarah received a phone call that complicated her preparation. A reporter from a major newspaper had learned about her assignment and wanted to do a feature story about the first woman attempting SEAL training. The Navy's Public Affairs Office was pressuring her to cooperate with media coverage that would generate positive publicity for their diversity initiatives. Sarah declined the interview request immediately. Media attention was the last thing she needed while preparing for the most challenging experience of her life. She understood that her attempt at SEAL training would eventually become public knowledge, but she was determined to focus entirely on preparation without the distraction of media speculation and public scrutiny. The final week before leaving for Coronado, Sarah made a pilgrimage to visit Jack Rodriguez, the former Marine who had first introduced her to serious military-style training. Jack's facility had been her second home during high school, the place where she had first learned to push beyond normal human limits. "You ready for this?" Jack asked as they walked through the training facility where Sarah had first discovered her capacity for extreme physical and mental challenges. Sarah considered the question seriously. "I don't think anyone can be completely ready for what BUD/S puts you through. But I've done everything I can to prepare. My body is as strong as it's ever been. My mind is focused. I know what I'm walking into." Jack nodded approvingly. "The hardest part won't be the physical challenges. You've proven you can handle those. The real test will be dealing with the psychological pressure of being the first. Everyone will be watching to see if you fail." "I know," Sarah replied. "But I've been dealing with people telling me I couldn't do this for years. The pressure isn't going to be anything new." On the drive to the airport, Sarah's parents were uncharacteristically quiet. They had supported her military career and understood her determination to pursue special operations training. But the reality of what she was attempting had finally registered. Their daughter was about to face challenges that had broken some of the toughest men in the world. "We're proud of you no matter what happens," her mother said as they reached the departure terminal. "You've already accomplished more than we ever thought possible." Sarah hugged her parents goodbye, knowing that the next time she saw them, she would either be a Navy SEAL or she would have failed attempting something that no woman had ever achieved. There was no middle ground in what she was about to face. The flight to San Diego gave Sarah time for final mental preparation. She reviewed her training notes, practiced breathing exercises, and visualized herself successfully completing the most difficult challenges she knew she would face. By the time the plane landed, she had achieved the kind of focused mental state that elite athletes describe before major competitions. Naval Amphibious Base Coronado was exactly what Sarah had expected from years of studying photographs and reading descriptions. The Pacific Ocean stretched endlessly westward, providing the backdrop for water training that would test every candidate's limits. The compound itself was relatively small, designed for the intimate brutality that made SEAL training legendary. Sarah reported to the administrative building at 0600 hours on Monday morning, along with 43 other candidates who had been selected for Class 234. The group was immediately notable for their physical conditioning and military bearing. These were not typical military recruits, but carefully selected individuals who had already proven themselves in demanding specialties. The reception was professional, but cold. Instructors processed candidates with the efficient indifference of people who had seen thousands of highly motivated individuals attempt what most would fail to complete. Sarah received the same treatment as everyone else: standard uniforms, equipment issue, and assignment to a training group without any acknowledgement of her unique status. Her first roommate assignment created immediate controversy. The Navy had struggled with housing arrangements for the first female SEAL candidate, ultimately deciding to assign her to a single room rather than force male candidates to accept a female roommate. The decision satisfied no one but avoided the complications that could have derailed training before it began. The first week of BUD/S was designed to establish baseline fitness levels and introduce candidates to the training environment. Even this introductory period was more demanding than anything most military personnel ever experienced. Daily schedules included multiple swimming sessions, long-distance runs, obstacle course training, and calisthenics sessions that pushed every candidate to their limits. Sarah's performance during the first week was exactly what she had hoped to achieve. She completed every requirement without standing out as either exceptionally strong or notably weak. Her strategy was to demonstrate competence while avoiding attention that might single her out for special scrutiny from instructors. But avoiding attention proved impossible. Sarah's presence in Class 234 had become common knowledge throughout the SEAL training community. Instructors who had spent careers training male candidates were intensely curious about how a woman would perform under the physical and psychological pressures they specialized in applying. Chief Petty Officer Mike Torres, the lead instructor for Sarah's training group, had initially opposed allowing women to attempt SEAL training. His 20-year career had convinced him that certain military specialties required physical capabilities that women simply couldn't match. Sarah's assignment to his group represented a test of beliefs he had held throughout his professional life. "I don't care what your previous experience has been," Torres told the class during their first formal training session. "SEAL training will push you beyond anything you've experienced. Most of you will quit. Some of you will be injured. A few might discover they have what it takes to earn the privilege of calling themselves Navy SEALs." His eyes lingered on Sarah for a moment longer than the other candidates, but his expression revealed nothing about his thoughts regarding her presence in the class. The second week brought the first major challenge that separated serious candidates from those who had underestimated what SEAL training demanded. The drown-proofing exercise required candidates to demonstrate water survival skills while having their hands and feet bound. It was designed to test not just physical capability, but the kind of mental control that prevented panic in life-threatening situations. Sarah had spent hundreds of hours preparing for this specific challenge, but experiencing it under the pressure of actual evaluation was entirely different from training. The cold Pacific water, the weight of equipment, and the knowledge that failure meant immediate dismissal from the program combined to create stress levels that few people ever experienced. As she entered the pool with her hands tied behind her back and her feet bound together, Sarah forced herself to focus on technique rather than the fear that threatened to overwhelm her thinking. She had practiced these movements thousands of times, but now she needed to execute them flawlessly while instructors watched for any sign of weakness or panic. The 20 minutes required to complete the exercise felt like hours. Sarah's lungs burned as she repeatedly surfaced to breathe before diving back down to retrieve objects from the pool bottom. Her bound limbs made every movement difficult and exhausting, but she maintained the steady rhythm she had practiced during preparation. When she finally completed the exercise and climbed out of the pool, Sarah was exhausted but successful. More importantly, she had demonstrated the kind of composure under extreme stress that instructors looked for in potential SEALs. Several candidates had already been eliminated during the same exercise, unable to control their panic when faced with the reality of simulated drowning. Chief Torres watched Sarah's performance without comment, but he made notes in his evaluation folder that would become part of her permanent training record. For the first time since she had arrived at Coronado, Sarah felt like she might actually have a realistic chance of completing what she had started. The third week brought Hell Week, the legendary period of continuous training that had become synonymous with SEAL selection. Candidates would be required to function on minimal sleep while completing increasingly difficult challenges for 5 straight days. Most eliminations occurred during Hell Week, when physical exhaustion and sleep deprivation pushed candidates beyond their breaking points. Sarah approached Hell Week with a detailed strategy she had developed during months of preparation. She understood that success would depend more on mental toughness and efficient energy management than pure physical strength. Her smaller size might actually be an advantage during some challenges that emphasized endurance over raw power. As Sunday night ended and Hell Week officially began, Sarah took a final moment to remember why she was there. Every person who had told her it was impossible, every barrier that had been placed in her way, every sacrifice she had made to reach this point. She was about to face the ultimate test of everything she had worked toward for years. At 11:47 p.m. on Sunday night, the air raid sirens began their haunting wail across Naval Amphibious Base Coronado. Hell Week had officially begun for BUD/S Class 234. Sarah Chun jerked awake in her narrow bunk, adrenaline immediately flooding her system as the sound she had been dreading and anticipating for months finally became reality. The next 5 days would determine whether years of preparation and sacrifice had been enough to achieve what no woman had ever accomplished. Hell Week was designed to break candidates both physically and mentally, pushing them beyond normal human endurance to identify the rare individuals who possessed the mental toughness required for special operations. Instructors burst through the barracks doors, screaming commands and creating immediate chaos. Candidates had less than 4 minutes to dress, gather equipment, and report to the beach for their first training evolution. Sarah moved efficiently through her preparation routine, muscle memory taking over as her conscious mind dealt with the shock of sudden awakening and overwhelming noise. The beach was a scene of controlled pandemonium. Powerful floodlights illuminated surf that looked impossibly cold and dangerous in the darkness. Instructors positioned themselves strategically around the training area, their voices amplified by megaphones as they shouted instructions that were barely audible over the sound of crashing waves. "Welcome to Hell Week," Chief Torres announced to the assembled candidates. "For the next 5 days, you will discover what you're truly made of. Some of you think you're tough enough to be Navy SEALs. We're about to find out if you're right." The first evolution was an immediate immersion in ice-cold ocean water. Candidates were required to link arms and wade into the surf until they were completely submerged. Then, hold position while waves crashed over them. The Pacific Ocean in January was shockingly cold, immediately penetrating clothing and equipment to chill candidates to their core. Sarah felt the icy water hit her like a physical blow, driving the air from her lungs and causing involuntary shivering that she struggled to control. Around her, other candidates were having similar reactions, but training had taught them all to push through physical discomfort and maintain formation regardless of conditions. The water immersion lasted 30 minutes that felt like hours. Sarah focused on controlled breathing and mental discipline techniques she had practiced during preparation, refusing to let the cold water break her concentration. When instructors finally allowed the class to exit the ocean, several candidates were showing signs of hypothermia, their lips blue and hands shaking uncontrollably. But there was no time for recovery. The next evolution began immediately as instructors directed the class to the obstacle course for a timed run that would be repeated throughout Hell Week. Wet clothing and equipment made every obstacle more difficult, but candidates were expected to maintain the same performance standards regardless of conditions. Sarah attacked the obstacle course with systematic intensity, using techniques she had perfected during years of training. Her smaller size proved advantageous on several obstacles that required agility and balance rather than pure strength. More importantly, her methodical approach allowed her to maintain consistent performance even as exhaustion began affecting other candidates. The first 24 hours of Hell Week established a brutal rhythm that would continue for the entire period. Brief periods of intense physical activity alternated with psychological challenges designed to test mental resilience under extreme stress. Sleep was virtually eliminated, with candidates receiving at most 2 hours of rest during any 24-hour period. By Tuesday morning, Class 234 had already lost 8 candidates. The combination of physical exhaustion, cold water exposure, and psychological pressure had proven too much for individuals who had seemed exceptionally capable during regular training. The instructors showed no sympathy for candidates who quit, immediately processing their withdrawal paperwork and removing them from the training environment. Sarah's strategy during the first day had been to blend into the group and avoid drawing special attention to her performance. But as Hell Week progressed, her consistent execution of difficult tasks began attracting notice from instructors who were experienced in identifying candidates with exceptional potential. During the log carry evolution on Tuesday afternoon, Sarah demonstrated the kind of leadership and team building that instructors looked for in future SEALs. When several members of her group began struggling with the weight of their assigned log, Sarah reorganized the carrying formation and motivated the team to complete their mission despite increasing exhaustion. Chief Torres watched Sarah's performance during the log carry with growing interest. Her ability to maintain effectiveness while encouraging teammates showed natural leadership qualities that couldn't be taught or faked. More importantly, she was demonstrating exactly the kind of mental toughness that separated potential SEALs from candidates who might complete training but lacked the psychological resilience required for actual special operations. Wednesday brought the notorious boat races, a series of competitions where teams of candidates raced small inflatable boats through challenging surf conditions. The exercise tested teamwork, leadership, and the ability to function effectively while completely exhausted. Most candidates were operating on less than 4 hours of sleep over the previous 60 hours. Sarah's boat team had been struggling with coordination and leadership issues that were common as exhaustion affected decision-making and communication. As they prepared for their third race of the day, Sarah made a decision that would define the rest of her Hell Week experience. "I'm calling navigation and tactics," she announced to her teammates. "If we're going to win this thing, we need clear leadership and coordinated execution. Anyone who doesn't want to follow orders can find another boat." Her teammates, all physically larger and more experienced in maritime operations, looked at each other uncertainly. But their previous races had been disasters, and Sarah's systematic approach to problem-solving had been evident throughout training. They agreed to let her lead. The transformation was immediate and dramatic. Under Sarah's leadership, the boat team executed flawless launches, maintained perfect formation through the surf zone, and finished their race in first place by a significant margin. More importantly, they had demonstrated the kind of seamless teamwork that instructors wanted to see from future special operations personnel. The success continued through subsequent races as Sarah's teammates gained confidence in her leadership and developed the coordination that had been missing from their earlier efforts. By the end of the day, their boat team was consistently finishing among the top performers, a remarkable turnaround that caught the attention of every instructor. Chief Torres pulled Sarah aside during one of the brief rest periods between evolutions. "Where did that leadership come from?" he asked. "I've been preparing for this for years," Sarah replied. "I studied every aspect of SEAL training, including the teamwork and leadership components. I knew I would need to contribute more than just physical performance to be successful." Torres nodded thoughtfully. In his experience, candidates who could provide effective leadership while exhausted and under extreme stress often became the most successful SEALs. Sarah was demonstrating exactly those qualities while dealing with pressures that no previous candidate had ever faced. Thursday brought the evolution that many candidates feared most: the night navigation exercise through the mudflats of San Diego Bay. Teams were required to navigate through miles of treacherous terrain in complete darkness, using only compass and map to reach designated checkpoints. The mudflats were cold, disorienting, and filled with obstacles that could cause serious injury to exhausted candidates. Sarah's navigation skills, developed through years of military training and outdoor experience, proved crucial during the exercise. While other teams struggled with compass readings and terrain identification, Sarah guided her team efficiently through the mudflats, reaching all checkpoints ahead of schedule and avoiding the dangerous areas that trapped several other groups. More importantly, she maintained team morale during what many candidates considered the most psychologically challenging evolution of Hell Week. The combination of exhaustion, cold, darkness, and difficult terrain created conditions that broke even mentally tough individuals. Sarah's calm leadership and clear navigation kept her team focused and motivated when other groups were falling apart. The night navigation exercise was followed immediately by the final major challenge of Hell Week, a series of timed evolutions that tested every aspect of SEAL training while candidates operated on minimal sleep and maximum exhaustion. Swimming, running, obstacle courses, and team challenges were compressed into a 6-hour period that eliminated more candidates than any other single phase of training. Sarah approached the final evolutions with systematic determination, drawing on energy reserves she had carefully managed throughout the week. While many candidates were showing visible signs of breakdown, Sarah maintained steady performance and continued providing leadership to teammates who were struggling with exhaustion and stress. As Friday afternoon arrived and Hell Week officially ended, Class 234 had been reduced from 44 candidates to 19. Sarah Chun was not only among the survivors, but had distinguished herself as one of the strongest performers in the class. Her combination of physical capability, mental toughness, and natural leadership had impressed instructors who had initially been skeptical about women in SEAL training. The week following Hell Week was designed to allow candidates time to recover while beginning the technical training phases that would occupy the remainder of BUD/S. Sarah used the recovery period to assess her performance and prepare for the challenges that lay ahead. She had proven that she could survive the most demanding phase of SEAL training, but significant obstacles remained before she could earn the right to call herself a Navy SEAL. The land warfare phase of training introduced weapons handling, demolitions, and small unit tactics that would be essential for special operations missions. Sarah's previous experience with explosives gave her an immediate advantage in demolitions training, but she struggled initially with some weapons systems that had been designed for larger operators. Her marksmanship scores were excellent, but handling heavy machine guns and rocket launchers required techniques that accommodated her smaller stature. Sarah worked with instructors to develop modified approaches that maintained effectiveness while accounting for physical differences that couldn't be overcome through training alone. The diving phase presented different challenges. Sarah's exceptional swimming ability and water confidence served her well during basic diving training, but the technical complexity of military diving operations required mastery of equipment and procedures that demanded absolute precision. A single mistake during combat diving could result in death for the diver and compromise entire missions. Sarah approached diving training with the same systematic intensity she had brought to every other aspect of BUD/S. She spent extra hours in the diving simulators, practiced equipment maintenance procedures until they became automatic, and studied diving physics and physiology until she understood every aspect of underwater operations. Her performance during diving training was so exceptional that instructors began using her as an example for other candidates who were struggling with technical procedures. Sarah's ability to remain calm under pressure and execute complex tasks while underwater demonstrated exactly the kind of competence that special operations required. As BUD/S training entered its final phases, Sarah realized that she was going to succeed where no woman had ever succeeded before. Her performance throughout the program had been consistently excellent, and instructors had begun treating her as they would any other exceptional candidate rather than focusing on her unique status as the first woman to attempt SEAL training. But success in BUD/S was only the beginning of what would be required to become a fully qualified Navy SEAL. Advanced training, specialized schools, and operational assignments lay ahead before she could truly claim membership in the most exclusive military unit in the world. Sarah approached the final weeks of BUD/S with the same determination that had carried her through every previous challenge. She had proven that women could complete SEAL training, but now she needed to prove that she could excel in the operational environment where success measured in lives saved and missions accomplished rather than training scores and instructor evaluations. The morning of graduation from BUD/S, Class 234 dawned clear and bright over Naval Amphibious Base Coronado. Sarah Chen stood with the 13 other surviving candidates as they prepared for the ceremony that would officially recognize their completion of the most challenging military training program in the world. After 6 months of training that had eliminated more than 70% of the original class, these 14 individuals had earned the right to continue toward becoming Navy SEALs. Sarah's parents had flown in from Ohio for the graduation ceremony, along with several instructors from her high school who had supported her impossible dream when no one else believed it could be achieved. Jack Rodriguez, the former Marine who had first introduced her to serious military training, sat in the front row with a proud smile that reflected years of watching Sarah develop into someone capable of extraordinary achievements. The graduation ceremony was relatively simple, reflecting the SEAL community's preference for substance over pageantry. Admiral Patricia Morrison, the first female admiral to oversee naval special warfare operations, delivered remarks that acknowledged the historic nature of Sarah's achievement while emphasizing that her success was based entirely on performance rather than any consideration of gender. Today, we recognize 14 individuals who have demonstrated the physical capability, mental toughness, and character required to pursue the most demanding military specialties, Admiral Morrison said to the assembled crowd. Their success reflects not just individual achievement, but our military's commitment to selecting the best candidates regardless of background or demographics. When Admiral Morrison called Sarah's name and presented her with the certificate recognizing completion of BUD/S training. The moment carried weight far beyond personal achievement. Sarah had broken a barrier that many had believed was permanent, proving that the most exclusive military unit in the world could include women who met the demanding standards that had historically eliminated most male candidates. But completing BUD/S was only the first step in becoming a fully qualified Navy SEAL. Sarah still needed to complete SEAL qualification training, an additional 6 months of specialized instruction that would teach the technical skills and tactical knowledge required for special operations missions. SQT had its own elimination rate, and candidates who survived BUD/S could still fail to complete the qualification process. Sarah approached SQT with the same systematic preparation that had characterized her entire military career. The training covered advanced combat tactics, specialized weapons systems, foreign languages, and the complex planning procedures that special operations missions required. Each phase tested different aspects of the knowledge and skills that distinguish SEALs from other military units. The advanced marksmanship phase required candidates to achieve expert-level proficiency with every weapon system used by special operations units. Sarah's previous challenges with larger weapons had been resolved through modified techniques and intensive practice, but SQT demanded performance standards that left no room for accommodation or special consideration. During one particularly challenging exercise, candidates were required to engage targets at extreme range using sniper rifles while accounting for wind, elevation, and other environmental factors that could affect bullet trajectory. Sarah's smaller stature actually proved advantageous in achieving the stable shooting positions required for precision marksmanship at long distances. Her first shot at a target 800 meters away was a perfect center hit that impressed instructors who had been skeptical about whether she could handle the physical demands of precision shooting with heavy weapons. Sarah's systematic approach to marksmanship, combined with natural steady hands and exceptional vision, made her one of the strongest marksmen in her SQT class. The demolitions phase built on Sarah's previous EOD experience, but introduced advanced techniques for underwater operations, building destruction, and specialized applications that went far beyond her previous training. The technical complexity was enormous, requiring candidates to master procedures that could mean the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure in operational environments. Sarah's background gave her significant advantages during demolitions training, but SQT standards required innovation and problem-solving that went beyond following established procedures. Candidates needed to assess unique situations and develop solutions using available materials and equipment. The creative thinking required was as important as technical knowledge. During a complex urban warfare exercise, Sarah was assigned to eliminate a reinforced concrete structure that protected a simulated enemy command post. The building's construction and defensive positioning made standard demolition approaches ineffective. Sarah needed to develop an original solution using limited resources while operating under time pressure and simulated enemy fire. Her solution involved a combination of techniques that none of the instructors had seen before. Instead of attempting to destroy the entire building, Sarah identified structural weak points that could be exploited with carefully placed charges to cause a controlled collapse that would eliminate the target while minimizing collateral damage to surrounding areas. The execution was flawless. Sarah's demolition plan worked exactly as designed, destroying the target structure completely while leaving adjacent buildings undamaged. More importantly, she had demonstrated the kind of innovative thinking and technical expertise that instructors looked for in candidates who would be assigned to the most demanding special operations missions. The foreign language requirement presented different challenges. SEALs were expected to achieve functional proficiency in languages relevant to their likely operational assignments. Sarah was assigned to study Arabic, a language that would be essential for Middle Eastern operations that comprised a significant portion of special operations missions. Language learning had never been Sarah's strongest area, but she approached Arabic with the same determination she brought to physical training. She spent extra hours with language instructors, practiced conversation with native speakers, and immersed herself in Arabic media to develop the listening comprehension skills that would be crucial during actual operations. Her progress was steady but unremarkable until instructors introduced the stress phase of language training. Candidates were required to conduct complex conversations in Arabic while performing physical exercises, dealing with sleep deprivation, and managing multiple tasks simultaneously. The ability to communicate effectively in foreign languages while under extreme stress was essential for special operations personnel. Sarah's performance during stress language training was exceptional. Her ability to maintain focus and recall vocabulary while exhausted and under pressure demonstrated exactly the kind of mental discipline that special operations required. By the end of the language training phase, she was conducting technical briefings entirely in Arabic with a fluency that impressed instructors. The final phase of SQT was a comprehensive field training exercise that tested every aspect of special operations capabilities in realistic scenarios. Teams of candidates were assigned complex missions that required integration of all their training while operating in challenging environments with minimal support. Sarah's team was assigned to infiltrate a defended facility, gather specific intelligence, and extract without being detected. The mission required underwater approach, overland navigation, technical climbing, surveillance techniques, and exfiltration under pursuit. Failure at any stage would compromise the entire operation. The mission planning phase alone took 3 days as the team analyzed intelligence, identified potential approaches, and developed contingency plans for likely complications. Sarah's role as team demolitions expert required her to design solutions for multiple obstacles while ensuring that any explosives used would not compromise the stealth requirements of the mission. The execution phase tested every skill the team had developed during months of training. The underwater infiltration required precise navigation and perfect timing to avoid detection. The overland movement demanded exceptional camouflage and noise discipline. The facility penetration needed technical climbing abilities and advanced surveillance techniques. Sarah's performance during the mission was outstanding. Her demolitions work eliminated security obstacles without creating detectable evidence of tampering. Her surveillance skills identified guard patterns and security vulnerabilities that allowed successful intelligence gathering. Most importantly, her leadership during critical decision points kept the team focused and effective when unexpected complications threatened to compromise the mission. The team completed their assigned mission successfully and extracted without detection, but the real measure of success was the comprehensive evaluation that followed. Instructors had monitored every aspect of the exercise, assessing individual and team performance against the standards expected of operational SEALs. Sarah's individual evaluation was exceptional across all measured categories. Technical proficiency, tactical knowledge, leadership ability, and performance under pressure all received the highest possible ratings. More importantly, instructors noted her natural ability to integrate different specialties and adapt to changing conditions that characterize the most effective special operations personnel. When SQT graduation arrived, Sarah Chun had achieved something that had seemed impossible just a few years earlier. She had completed every phase of Navy SEAL training and earned the right to wear the SEAL trident that identified her as a member of the most elite military unit in the world. The graduation ceremony was attended by senior military officials, members of Congress, and media representatives who understood the historic significance of Sarah's achievement. But, for Sarah, the most meaningful moment came when Chief Petty Officer Torres, the instructor who had initially been skeptical about women in SEAL training, personally pinned the trident on her uniform. "You earned this," Torres said simply. "Not because you're a woman, but because you're a warrior." Admiral Morrison's closing remarks at the graduation ceremony acknowledged what everyone present understood. Sarah Chun had not just completed SEAL training. She had proven that capability was what mattered in the most demanding military specialties. Her success would open doors for other women and fundamentally change how the military evaluated candidates for special operations. Today we celebrate not just individual achievement, but our military's evolution toward true meritocracy, Admiral Morrison said. The standards that define our elite units remain unchanged and uncompromising. What has changed is our understanding of who can meet those standards when given the opportunity. Sarah's assignment to SEAL Team 3 brought her full circle to the operational environment where she had first proven her capabilities working with special operations units in Afghanistan. But now she was returning as a fully qualified team member rather than support personnel, ready to take on the most challenging missions that American special operations undertook around the world. Her integration into SEAL Team 3 was seamless, reflecting the culture of operational units where performance mattered more than any other consideration. Sarah's teammates evaluated her based on her training record, technical expertise, and ability to contribute to team effectiveness. The historic nature of her achievement was acknowledged, but considered less important than her operational capabilities. The first mission assignment tested every aspect of Sarah's training in real-world conditions that carried genuine life-or-death consequences. The operation involved infiltrating a terrorist stronghold to gather intelligence about planned attacks on American facilities. Success would prevent loss of American lives. Failure could result in strategic intelligence losses and compromise ongoing counterterrorism efforts. Sarah's role as team demolitions expert proved crucial to mission success when unexpected security improvements required innovative solutions to penetrate the target facility. Her ability to assess complex problems and develop effective solutions under pressure demonstrated exactly the kind of expertise that justified the military's investment in her training and development. The mission's success established Sarah's reputation as a fully capable SEAL whose gender was irrelevant compared to her professional competence. Her teammates' confidence in her abilities grew through subsequent operations that consistently demonstrated her technical expertise, tactical knowledge, and mental toughness under extreme pressure. 5 years after completing SEAL training, Sarah Chun had accumulated a combat record that compared favorably with any special operations personnel of her generation. She had conducted dozens of successful missions, earned multiple commendations for exceptional performance, and been selected for advanced training that positioned her for leadership roles within the special operations community. More importantly, her success had opened pathways for other women who possessed the rare combination of physical capability, mental toughness, and technical expertise required for special operations. The barriers that had once seemed permanent had been proven to be artificial limitations that reflected outdated assumptions rather than operational requirements. Sarah's achievement represented more than personal success or even breaking gender barriers. She had demonstrated that military excellence depended on individual capabilities rather than demographic characteristics, fundamentally changing how the most elite units in the American military identified and developed their personnel. The impossible dream of a 15-year-old girl in Ohio had become reality through years of systematic preparation, unwavering determination, and the refusal to accept limitations that others tried to impose. Sarah Chun had not just become a Navy SEAL. She had proven that the only real barriers to achievement were those that people created in their own minds.